Let's talk about repurposing your content. Basically, what I mean by this is transforming one format or piece of content into multiple formats. So, for example, we can turn a podcast into a YouTube video, or an article into a downloadable PDF guide, or turn video content that you have into an infographic. This is a great way to create more content, to reach different audiences, to reach not only different audiences on different platforms, but to reach people who like consuming content in different ways. I have a lot of lessons in my online courses, and our photography masterclass, one of my best-selling online courses, has tens of thousands of students, and those videos have been viewed hundreds of thousands of times by people all around the world. And it's content that I've actually taken some of the lessons from the videos themselves and turned those into blog articles, or turned those into YouTube videos, taking some similar content and putting it out there for free, which attracts people. It brings out that brand awareness. And instead of having to reinvent the wheel or feel like, since it's content that's in an online course, it's in a product of mine, then I can't share it somewhere else for free. Depending on what your business is, it might not look as simple as taking a video lesson from a course and putting it out there on YouTube. Of course, you probably aren't doing an online course business. Maybe you are. But if your business is digital media, or it has any sort of content that you create, make sure you're thinking about how you can repurpose it to reach multiple audiences. Now, I will say one more thing about this though. With a podcast, as an example, I have my Online Course Masters brand. This is my brand where I teach people how to create and sell online courses. For a long time, I've put the podcast episodes on YouTube because like I said, it reaches a different audience there. Part of me has wondered if putting it on YouTube has decreased the amount of listens I might get on the podcast itself. And the problem with that would be that by not getting as many plays and downloads of the podcast audio episode, the ranking of the podcast and the awareness of the podcast on podcast marketplaces like Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google Play might not be as good as it could. So this is an experiment that I'm currently running where in the future, I'm not going to be putting out the entire episodes on YouTube. I might put a short snippet. I might put a little promotion or a preview of the episode on YouTube. But ultimately, I'm trying to get people back to the main content, because depending on where you're putting your content, a lot of your success is going to have to do with ranking of that content in whatever search engine it is. If it's an ebook on Amazon, still it's a search engine and you're trying to rank on there. If it's a video on YouTube, it's a search engine. If it's a podcast, it's a search engine. If it's an online course, it's a search engine that's going to determine most of your success. And so by driving a lot of traffic to that core piece of content that you're trying to rank and that you want most people consuming, that's going to do better than just repurposing it in a bunch of different areas and spreading it out. So one other tip is perhaps putting out your main content as your main format. So if it's a podcast, put it out as a podcast. But then also later on, perhaps putting out a blog article with the transcript for that. You can also do this at the same time, including a downloadable PDF that includes some of the basic tips and tricks that are talked about in that podcast episode, but not spreading your audience too thin and pointing them to different places if at the end of the day you want people to listen to that podcast on Apple Podcasts or whatever marketplace you want them to be on. So hopefully that makes sense. But in general, if you're stuck and you're like, Phil, I've created a ton of content, I don't know what else to create, think back and just look at what content do you already have. Can you transform it into an infographic? Can you turn it into a more interesting downloadable guide? Can you turn it into a video or vice versa? Thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed this section, and we'll see you in the next one.